The horror stories that you hear about Japan and its apparent xenophobia are many. Things like Japanese people are racist, xenophobic zealots with an overinflated sense of nationalism, or that they just treat others with a sense of disregard and disdain, or just completely oblivious to racially tinged concepts. And what better way to see if this is true than through the lens of fashion, where image is everything. Of course, there are better ways, things like laws, but hear me out, fashion. And Japan just so happens to be one of the most influential countries in the industry. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm your boy Reggie Casual, and today we explore racism, xenophobia through street fashion culture in Japan. It's gonna be wild. Some people probably gonna get mad. I'm okay with that. Let's get it. Now let's go ahead and get to the elephant in the room. I don't like talking about this stuff personally, not because I'm afraid of the conversation, but because the assumptions that people may have before I even open my mouth, before I even say anything. It's true. I'm a brown person who lives in Japan. Oh my God. I come from a mixed heritage, and personally I identify as such, but for the most part, people consider me black, and I'm okay with that. I'm completely fine. That's great. All right, I'll consider myself that. No issue there. The problem with speaking about these issues as a black person of mixed heritage is that many would expect that I'd lean to a particular side just because of how I look, which should never be the case, but I recognize why people do it. Doesn't mean that it's right in my opinion, but I'm not blind to it. Now, this expose, so to speak, is attempting to be as objective as possible. So in the spirit of objectivity, let's get past this beautiful facade. Okay, are we past it yet? Okay, good, let's go. Now, my personal experiences and observations in Japan have largely been overwhelmingly positive. Yes, largely overwhelmingly. About 85% positive to 15% negative. And the 15% is just minor annoyances that are negligible. I mean, Japan is safe. I've never been harassed intentionally by authorities or civilians, or at least directly. And people are either generally kind in day-to-day situations or just too busy to care who the hell I am. People mind their space and their business, and it keeps things in balance, harmony, so to speak. Life is pretty easy. But I should also mention that I live in Tokyo, which is by far the most cosmopolitan city in Japan. Japanese are used to foreigners in Tokyo, and as such pay them almost no mind at all, so there's that. Now, that's the general sense, but there are little things that Japanese do and engage in that may be a bit hard to swallow if you're a first timer. And the fashion industry really does a fine job of giving us some striking examples. Now, the very first thing that you may notice is the adoption of culture. Now, I'm very careful not to say appropriation in this regard because it's not really that. Japanese involved in fashion have a tendency to go to great lengths to appear exactly like the image of the lifestyles they choose to take part in. And often this rubs people who don't know the wrong way. Hip-hop styles that look like they came straight out of Compton, or cholo styles that came out of East LA. They're here in Japan, and it's glaring, albeit a bit rare. Even Caribbean styles, which are celebrated, and Americana styles, which are lauded, might give you a second take, and at first glance it may seem a bit offensive, especially when you see the girls that tan deeply and give off a more, should I say, ethnic vibe, or the guys that purposely act rude to portray the image that they think is classic hardcore rock, punk, hip-hop, or skate. You could consider it quite off-putting, especially since when it comes down to it, the Japanese people are still incredibly Japanese at their core. They still adhere to the norms of society, making it seem as though the image that they're putting on is fake and a portrayal of what they want to be rather than what they are, or how they think any particular culture that they choose acts. This in the West is usually considered appropriation or just plain posing or fronting. But in Japan, there is a sense of self as well as appreciation. You'll never see a Japanese person involved in any of the aforementioned subcultures claim ownership of it. Hiroshi Fujiwara once said that Japanese like Americans in American culture because they can never be like Americans. To that end, they know what they are and they know what they are doing. So the Japanese almost never take credit, and it can often be surprising how much knowledge they obtain about any said lifestyle that they are taking part in. In the end, you are closer to a sense of respect than a sense of judgment, but you have to allow yourself to get to that point. You see, most Japanese only have the image of a particular group of people through what Western media feeds them, and the fashion industry often plays this up in Japan. For example, punk, Americana, and upgraded street casual styles are often photographed using white guys and gals. Beams and Neighborhood come to mind, but hip-hop centric lookbooks will almost certainly feature black guys if they can get them here. Bape, Mine, and others take part in this. In most cases, this is even over actual Japanese models because this image of white equals conformity and black equals anti-conformity is a byproduct of what they've been fed by the West. Speaking shortly with Chris Gibbs of Union as he was opening up Union Tokyo, he told me, "My idea is to give Japanese people a more pluralistic view of black people. The two that they are most familiar with is hip hop and Caribbean," which is very true. Chris Gibbs makes frequent trips to Japan and lauds Japanese for their attention to detail and steadfast nature to learn about the cultures that they want to take part in. But even he recognizes the importance of giving Japanese people more info about the real world view. People are not monoliths, and we shouldn't really generalize, a position I think any reasonable person would agree with. To that end, it doesn't mean that it's all hunky-dory in Japan. Even in Tokyo, mixed individuals, especially of the browner persuasion, are often teased as kids. However, they often grow up to be admired and desired because they are more ethnic and different. Quite often, they have chances to become models or entertainers because of that fact. Nesmith of J-Soul, Mandy of Exile Tribe, Japanese model Lola, Miss Japan 2015, Ariana Miyamoto, Miss Japan 2017, Priyanka Yoshikawa, Thelma Aoyama, and countless others. Now, this may seem like a good thing. Oh, Japan is making strides, yeah, entering into the future. But the reality is that it can often be seen as exploitation from an outsider. And this is even more poignant when you consider that mixed kids are often seen in the surliest of groups generally, considered outsiders in their own country, and deal with depression and abuse more often than not, which is already a problem for full Asian Japanese. These kids have to grow up fast and have to learn to use their different look to their benefit, while at the same time struggling with the identity of being Japanese and not truly being accepted in all situations. The aforementioned Miss Japan 2015 and 2016 and Miyamoto and Yoshikawa respectively drew extreme ire from pro-pure Japanese only hardliners, even as the country was doing more to embrace a growing mixed Japanese community. So yes, there is a sense of pride in being pure Japanese, and the undertones of discrimination can rear its ugly head, but let's be real here. Japan doesn't really have a crime problem, so it's not that, and generally none of these groups act outside of Japanese social norms. In fact, the most xenophobic language is not actually directed towards whites, Latins, or even blacks. The real prejudice can often lie within the dynamic of relations with Koreans and Chinese, with many in these two groups changing their names completely to avoid discrimination. And let's not talk about how Filipinos are treated as true second-class citizens at times in Japan. It seems the country has a ways to go with other Asians. But it's not all bad. How do we break these barriers in fashion or otherwise? Well, generally what I found is that the minute that you speak Japanese as a non-Asian foreigner, let me be specific, for many Japanese, you gain a ton of respect, more so than any other country that I've been to, mainly because it's generally only useful in Japan and you're clearly not Asian. Japanese know how monumental of a task this is and how much you must like Japan to study their language. It effectively breaks down that incredibly high barrier that surrounds most Japanese people, if you're non-Asian, of course. But also, let's be real again. As far as people who look specifically like me in Japan of the black or Latin persuasion, there just aren't that many, seriously. And those that do are often celebs, rappers, entertainers, at least that's the image. Meanwhile, white people and Asians come to Japan in droves, undeterred by the fact that Japans can sometimes exhibit a bit of xenophobic nature. If there's one thing that I do know about white individuals is that they don't care so much about that when they are traveling. But in my experience, and from what I've been asked by black people, they care about it a lot. They don't want to be seen as other, and I get that. It's been drilled into the general thought process, especially in places like America. But let me tell you, I personally have made more acquaintances in Japan, not only because I can speak Japanese, 日本語が喋るから、but I'm open to giving them a different viewpoint of what their preconceived notions may be about people who look like me. And I don't do this intentionally, I just be's me. And from that, they understand my love of Japan and why I consider it home despite not being Japanese. I often tell Japanese people that people around the world admire their culture so much, and they are so proud of that. And when I see young and old people alike engaging in hip hop, skate, rock, punk, lining up to see Jerry Lorenzo, Virgil Abloh, bumping Rihanna, Justin Timberlake, Raphael Sadiq, or even Taylor Swift, in Japan, I'm reminded that they admire my culture too, and I can open that door even wider by engaging with them. And sure, there are some things that may rub you the wrong way. You may be tired of the way that people stare at you, or how nobody cares to sit next to you on a completely full train. That's mostly because they are unfamiliar, so you gotta familiarize them with that. People ask me all the time how it is being a black guy in Japan. I often answer, just like being a white guy, but browner. No matter what you may hear from overzealous tourists that think Japanese people just love white people, I can take you to places where they can't get enough of chocolate and caramel. The point is, no matter where you go in the world, there's going to be someone that likes you or just doesn't like you because of how you look. You have a choice to engage with them or ignore them. Way, genius. It should never stop you from checking out a place you want to go to. It's truly a waste of your time if you put that much energy into thinking that what you look like is a defect. You're effectively demeaning yourself if you do so. So is Japan racist, xenophobic, etc., etc.? Well, put it this way, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. If I had a choice between American racism and Japanese racism, it's not even close. I choose Japan every time. It's a landslide, simply because the issues are considerably more mild. Doesn't mean that they don't have problems, but I never have to wake up with that what the hell is gonna happen today feeling that I would often feel in certain places in the States. The point is, I don't want to pontificate on my ethnicity and how it diminishes my prospects in life because I don't believe that it does. I do things because I'm Reggie. Being any other ethnicity wouldn't change how I go about living. I don't think about the barriers because of my ethnicity, because no matter what comes my way, I'd overcome it because I want to. Now, I recognize that for many, it can be an uphill struggle, and I sympathize with that. I'm not blind to racial injustice, but my philosophy has always been become so great that no one can deny you. So you can say whatever you want about me, I'm still going to move up regardless. But that's me personally. Of course, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Japanese culture in terms of this very subject? It's deep, but not that deep. So all you guys, the racial trolls out there, some of you guys that are just hunting for saying something about some comments, seriously, keep it casual. It's not that serious. It's serious, but it ain't that serious. Of course, the inevitable comment will come, so I'll just say, don't get mad at me because I'm doing what you can't. In advance. Anyway, most of you guys are cool, so let me know what you think in the comments. As always, keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu, and I'll see you guys in a minute. Thanks for watching, and you can see more videos from The Casual by checking out these guys right over here. And you can help The Casual build bigger and better things by supporting us on Patreon. Just take a look at that link below. Take you right there. Every little bit helps. Seriously, we probably need the help. But most importantly, keep it locked right here for all of your info on international street fashion and culture from Tokyo. It's your boy, and keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu, and I'll see you guys in a minute.